Welcome to Divine Peace. Tonight we'll read through the story of Joseph, from Genesis chapters 37 through 50, to help you slow down, settle your thoughts, and drift into peaceful sleep. There will be no ads while you listen. If this channel brings you rest, consider subscribing, and let us know in the comments where in the world you're listening from tonight. Now, settle in, close your eyes, and let's begin. Genesis chapter 37. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Consider those words for a moment as you rest. Could not speak a kind word to him. Not that they chose silence, not that they withheld affection, they could not. The hatred had grown so deep it closed their mouths, and in that silence, the house of Jacob fractured. A father who had buried his beloved Rachel, a father who had wrestled with God at Peniel and walked away limping with a new name and a scarred hip. That father gathered all of his wounded love and placed it on one boy, the firstborn of the wife he had waited 14 years to marry, Joseph, and the coat that Ketanet Passim yield was not merely colourful thread. Scholars tell us the Hebrew word passim speaks of a garment reaching to the wrists and ankles, a robe of status, a robe that says, this one does not labour in the field, this one is set apart. 10 brothers saw that robe and understood what it meant. They had been quietly erased by their father's grief. Genesis 37 verse 5. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Notice that. His father kept the matter in mind. Jacob rebuked the boy publicly. He challenged him before the others, but privately in the quiet chambers of a man who had himself received visions, who had seen angels ascending and descending a ladder at Bethel, Jacob wondered. He did not dismiss the dream. He stored it. And the brothers saw the rebuke but could not see the belief beneath it. They saw only a boy who spoke his dreams aloud without hesitation, without calculation, without understanding that some truths land like weapons in the hands of those already wounded. Joseph, at 17, did not yet know what his father's silence cost. He did not know that speaking a vision plainly could be an act of violence to men who had already been made invisible. He was not cruel, he was transparent, and transparency, in a house built on favouritism, is its own kind of blade. The hatred of the brothers shifted now. It was no longer passive, no longer the dull ache of being overlooked. It became active. It became a thing with direction, a thing waiting for opportunity. Genesis 37 verse 12. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I'm going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. The valley of Hebron. That is where the journey begins. The place where Abraham had settled. The place where Sarah was buried. The place where generations of promise had taken root in limestone and dry earth. From Hebron to Shechem is a distance of perhaps 50 miles. Rolling hills, rocky paths winding north through the central ridge. A young man walking alone in the heat of the day, carrying his father's instructions and wearing perhaps that distinctive robe. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. Dothan, another 15 miles north, 65 miles now from his father's house, 65 miles from safety, and the text tells us something terrible in the plainest of language. Verse 18. "But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. They saw him in the distance. Before he reached them, before he could speak, before he could deliver his father's greeting, before he could ask after the flocks, they had already decided." The plan was formed while Joseph was still a figure on the horizon, walking toward them with no knowledge of what waited. Perhaps they recognized the robe. That garment reaching to wrists and ankles, catching the light as he moved across the open plain. The mark of their father's love visible from far off, like a flag announcing everything they hated. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." As if killing the dreamer could kill the dream. As if silencing the boy could silence what God had spoken. But Reuben, the eldest, the one who bore the weight of firstborn responsibility. Reuben heard their words and tried to rescue Joseph from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." The text tells us Reuben said this to rescue Joseph from them and take him back to his father. Reuben's plan was incomplete. It was not courage in full. He did not stand before his brothers and say, "No." He did not shield the boy with his own body. He redirected. He bought time. And perhaps that is all he could manage against 9 men united in rage. Perhaps that is what mercy looks like in a family this broken. Not a rescue, but a delay. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. A bore, a dry man-made pit cut into limestone, deep enough that a man cannot climb out. Dark, cool stone walls, the smell of old rainwater long evaporated, and above, a circle of sky growing smaller as you fall. They stripped him first. That detail matters. Before the pit, before the darkness, they removed the coat. They took from him the visible sign of his father's love. They unmade him. Reduced him from the favoured son to a boy in a hole with nothing. And then, and this is the detail that should stop your breath, verse 25, as they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. They sat down to eat. Joseph is in the pit. Joseph, who later the text will tell us was pleading with them, crying out to them, begging for mercy. We learn this detail years later, in Genesis 42, when the brothers confess to one another. "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen." They heard him pleading, and they sat down to eat bread. The ordinary cruelty of that image, the casual evil of men who can hear suffering and choose a meal. Let those words settle over you now. Let the stillness hold them. A boy in a pit, his voice rising. His brothers chewing bread, and on the horizon, camels loaded with spices moving south toward Egypt. The text breathes here. The story pauses at the rim of that cistern and lets us feel the weight of what has been done and what is about to be done. Joseph does not know yet that this pit is not his grave. He does not know that 20 years from now those same brothers will stand before him in Egypt, not recognizing his face, bowing low, just as the sheaves bowed in his dream. He knows only the dark, the stone, the sound of his own voice echoing back to him unanswered, and above, somewhere, the sound of men eating who share his father's blood. This is where the story of Joseph truly begins, not with the coat, not with the dreams, but here, in the silence between a boy's cry and his brother's indifference, in the distance between Hebron and Dothan, between a father's love and the world's cruelty, between a dream spoken in innocence and the long, brutal road toward its fulfillment. The valley of Hebron is 50 miles south. Jacob sits there tonight, expecting his son to return with news of the flocks. He does not know. He will not know for 20 years, and Joseph, 17 years old, alone in the dark, does not know either. He does not know that God is present in cisterns. He does not know that the path downward, into pits, into slavery, into prisons, is sometimes the path that leads to a throne. He knows only the cold stone against his back, the circle of sky above, the fading sound of his brothers' voices, and the slow approach of camels bearing spices toward Egypt. Rest now in this pause. Let the silence between these verses hold you gently. The story continues. The caravan draws nearer, and Joseph's long journey south, away from everything he knows, away from his father's house, away from the land of promise, is about to begin. But not yet. For now, he is still in the pit. For now, the brothers are still eating. For now, the sun is still moving across the sky above Dothan, and the dust of the Ishmaelite camels is still rising on the road from Gilead. Breathe, rest. The story will carry you forward when you are ready. Judah looked up and saw the caravan in the distance, and a new thought formed. Not mercy, not quite, but something other than murder. "What will we gain?" Judah said to his brothers. "If we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. Our own flesh and blood. Even in their hatred, even with Joseph's cries still rising from the cistern, Judah could not fully sever the bond of kinship. He could not kill, but he could sell. He could profit from the betrayal and call it mercy. And so they pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. 20 shekels of silver, the price of a young male slave in that ancient world, the value placed upon a dreamer by the men who shared his blood. Lifted from the dark into the light only to be handed to strangers. Ropes on his wrists, perhaps. The caravan moving south, the smell of balm and myrrh, the sound of foreign tongues. And behind him, growing smaller with every step, the hills of Dothan, where his brothers stood watching him disappear. When Reuben went back to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" The eldest son, the one who had planned to return, the one who had bought time that ran out. Too late. The pit was empty. The caravan was gone. And Reuben stood at the edge of a dry hole with nothing left but the knowledge of what he had failed to prevent. Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. The coat that had been given in love now returned in blood. The garment of distinction became the instrument of deception. Jacob, who had once deceived his own father Isaac with the skin of a goat, is now deceived by his own sons with the blood of a goat. The symmetry is quiet. The text does not announce it, but it is there. And Jacob's grief, his refusal to be comforted, his declaration that he will mourn until death, this grief will last 20 years. 20 years of believing his son is dead. 20 years of sackcloth, 20 years of a wound that will not close, while in Egypt a boy grows into a man. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. The last verse of chapter 37, a single line. Joseph arrives in Egypt. He is property now. He belongs to a man named Potiphar, the captain of the guard, a man of power and position in the court of Pharaoh, and Joseph, 17, stripped of his father's coat, stripped of his father's presence, stripped of his name and his standing. Joseph enters a foreign land, a land of gods he does not know, a language he has not yet learned, a household where he is nothing, less than nothing, a purchased body, a pair of hands. But the story does not end in the pit. It does not end on the road to Egypt. It does not end in Potiphar's house. The dreams that made enemies are still alive. The sheaves still bow, the stars still bend, and the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, is the God who walks with Joseph into the dark. Rest here. Let your breathing slow. Let the silence between these verses settle like evening over the hills of Canaan. The story will continue. Joseph is in Egypt now. and the long arc from betrayal to forgiveness, 20 years of it, has only just begun. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. These are the words of Genesis chapter 39. A boy sold for 20 pieces of silver. A boy pulled from a dry cistern and placed on the back of a caravan bound for the Nile. And now that boy stands in the household of one of the most powerful men in Egypt, the captain of the guard, Potiphar, a man whose authority extends through the corridors of Pharaoh's court. A man whose house would have been large, ordered, staffed with servants and slaves drawn from every conquered territory. Joseph enters this house as property. He has no rank, no family name that means anything here, no language yet to speak for himself. The gods carved into the lintels are not his God. The prayers spoken at dawn along the river are not his prayers. The hierarchy is rigid, from Pharaoh at the top, down through his officials, his priests, his military captains, down through the households and the servants and the slaves. Joseph is at the bottom, and yet the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. The text does not say Joseph prospered because he was clever. It does not say he prospered because he was resourceful or strong or educated. It says the Lord was with him. This is the theological pivot of the entire narrative. Everything that follows, every rise, every fall, every door that opens and every door that closes, rests on this single declaration. The Lord was with Joseph. In Canaan, the presence of God had been marked by altars, by promises spoken under open sky, by covenants made with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob. But here, in Egypt, there is no altar. There is no promise spoken aloud. There is only the quiet, persistent presence of God in the life of a slave who has every reason to believe he has been abandoned. Potiphar sees it. The text says his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. How Potiphar perceived this, whether he recognized the God of Joseph by name, or simply observed an uncommon quality in this young Hebrew, the text does not say. But the result is clear. Joseph found favor in his eyes. He became his attendant. Then more than an attendant, Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. Everything. The fields, the servants, the stores of grain and oil and linen, the accounts, the management of the entire estate, everything except the food Potiphar ate. This is not a small thing. In the world of Middle Kingdom Egypt, a household overseer held genuine administrative authority. The position carried weight. It required fluency, not just in language, but in the customs of commerce, in the expectations of Egyptian social life, in the protocols of a house connected to the royal court. Joseph learns. He learns quickly. He absorbs the language of the Nile Valley, the rhythms of its seasons, the careful hierarchies of address and deference. He becomes, in every visible way, an Egyptian administrator, but beneath the linen and the authority he remains the son of Jacob, the son of Israel, the dreamer from Canaan who once wore an ornate robe and told his brothers that their sheaves would bow. And the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph, not because of Potiphar's wisdom, not because of Egypt's gods, because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. This prosperity is real. It is visible. It is the kind of abundance that draws attention, and attention, in this story, is never safe. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. The text places this detail here, after the prosperity, after the trust, after the rise. It places it here because what follows depends on it. And after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." A single line, direct, no preamble, no courtship. A command from a woman of power to a man who is, despite his authority in the household, still a slave, still property, still someone who exists at the pleasure of his master and his master's household. But he refused. He refused. "With me in charge," he told her, My master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Listen to the structure of his refusal. First, loyalty to Potiphar. He names the trust. He names the authority given to him. He names what has been withheld, only her. And then, above the loyalty to his master, he names the loyalty that holds everything together. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Not the gods of Egypt, not the customs of this house. God, the God of his father, the God who walks with him in this foreign land, the God whose presence Potiphar himself has observed without fully understanding. Joseph's refusal is not a moment of weakness narrowly avoided. It is a daily practice. And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Day after day, the text is clear. This is not a single temptation. It is sustained. It is relentless. And Joseph refuses not once but repeatedly, consistently, at cost to himself each time. Because a woman of power does not forget being refused. A woman of Potiphar's household does not accept rejection without consequence. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. He ran. He left the garment behind. He fled the house with nothing. And here, the coat returns. Not the ornate robe of his father, not the garment dipped in goat's blood, but a garment seized, a garment held as evidence, a garment used to tell a lie. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." Listen to the sequence. First she tells the servants. She establishes the story among witnesses. Then she tells her husband. She repeats it. She holds the garment. The garment is the proof. The garment is the lie made physical. In Dothan, Joseph's robe was stripped from him and dipped in blood to deceive a father. In Potiphar's house, Joseph's cloak is seized from him and held aloft to deceive a master. 2 garments, 2 lies, 2 descents. The first took him from son to slave. The second takes him from overseer to prisoner. The pattern is exact. The text does not pause to explain it. It does not draw a line between the 2 moments and say, "Here, see the echo." It simply tells the story. And the story speaks. When his master heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. The king's prisoners, not a common cell, not the pit where ordinary criminals were thrown, the royal prison, the place where men who had offended Pharaoh waited for judgment. Joseph descends again, from the hills of Canaan to the cistern at Dothan, from the cistern to the slave market, from the slave market to Potiphar's house, from the house to the height of trust and authority, and now from that height down again, into confinement, into darkness, into a place where no one will advocate for him, where his word, the word of a Hebrew slave, carries no weight against the word of an Egyptian noblewoman. He did what was right. He refused what was wrong. He named it clearly, a sin against God. And it cost him everything he had built, every year of learning the language, every year of earning trust, every careful step up from the bottom of an empire that did not know his name, gone. Because faithfulness in this story does not guarantee safety. Obedience does not guarantee comfort. The path of integrity leads Joseph not to promotion, but to prison, not to reward, but to a second pit. And yet, but while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. The same words, the same declaration. In Potiphar's house, the Lord was with Joseph. In prison, the Lord was with him. The location changes, the circumstance changes, the presence does not. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. The same pattern: trust, authority, favour, success. Not because the world is fair, not because the system rewards goodness, but because the Lord was with him. In the house of Potiphar, everything prospered under Joseph's hand. In the prison of Pharaoh, everything prospers under Joseph's hand. The walls are different, the title is different, but the presence is the same. And Joseph, now perhaps 19, perhaps 20, alone in a foreign prison with no advocate, no family, no word from home, Joseph endures. Think of what he carries. The memory of his father's face, the memory of the robe, the memory of the pit, the voices of his brothers above him, the moment they pulled him up only to hand him to strangers. The memory of Potiphar's house. Years of service, years of loyalty, undone by a lie and a garment. And beneath all of it, the dreams, the sheaves bowing, the sun and moon and stars bending low. Dreams given by God, spoken aloud in innocence, met with hatred and violence, and now silence. Years of silence. No voice from heaven, no confirmation, no sign that the dreams meant anything at all. Only the quiet, unspoken presence of the Lord. Only the pattern of favour in impossible places. Only the slow, hidden work of a story that has not yet revealed its shape. Back in Canaan, Jacob mourns. He wears sackcloth. He weeps. His sons and daughters come to him and he refuses their comfort. He says he will mourn until he joins his son in the grave. And his sons, the ones who sold Joseph, the ones who dipped the coat in blood, the ones who brought the garment to their father and said, "We found this, examine it." They stand in the presence of that grief. They watch it, day after day, month after month, year after year. They cannot undo it. They cannot confess without destroying themselves. They cannot comfort without revealing the lie. So they live in it. They carry it. The silence of their guilt becomes part of the household, part of the air they breathe, part of every meal taken at their father's table. Jacob believes his son is dead, torn by animals, gone forever. And the brothers know, every one of them knows, as Joseph is alive. Somewhere. In Egypt. A slave. Perhaps still living. Perhaps dead by now. But not torn by any animal. Not devoured. Sold. By their own hands. For 20 pieces of silver. This is the weight they carry. This is the silence they maintain. And it will last for years. Years in which children are born. Years in which flocks grow and seasons turn and life moves forward in Canaan, as though nothing has changed. But something has changed. Something is broken at the centre of this family. A father who cannot stop grieving, sons who cannot stop lying, and a brother, far away, in a place none of them can reach, who walks through fire after fire and somehow does not burn. The Lord was with Joseph, in the pit, though the text does not say it, on the road to Egypt, though no angel appears, in the house of Potiphar, where it is spoken plainly, in the prison, where it is spoken again, the presence is constant. The deliverance is slow, the dreams remain, and the story, the long patient story of betrayal and silence and faithfulness and cost, the story continues. Joseph is in prison now, the second pit, the second descent, and the God who gave him dreams in Canaan has not spoken again, but he is there, in the silence, in the waiting, in the dark. Rest here. Let the quiet settle. Let your body soften into stillness. The story holds. It holds through prison walls and years of silence. It holds through grief that will not end and guilt that cannot speak. It holds because the one who gave the dreams is faithful even when the dreamer cannot see the road ahead. Sleep now. The story will be here when you return. Genesis chapter 39 verse 20. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favour in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. This is where we find him now, not in the sunlight of Canaan, not in the ordered rooms of Potiphar's estate, but in a prison, a royal prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. This was not a common dungeon, not a hole dug in the ground for thieves and debtors. This was a state facility, a holding place for men who had angered Pharaoh, officials who had fallen from favour, servants of the court who had spoken the wrong word or been accused by the wrong person, powerful men, men who once wore linen and gold, men who once walked in the presence of the king, and among them Joseph, a Hebrew slave, a foreigner, a man with no status, no advocate, no voice in any court. Yet the Lord was with him. The phrase repeats itself because the truth repeats itself. In Potiphar's house, the Lord was with Joseph. In the prison, the Lord was with Joseph. The circumstance changes. The presence does not. And watch what happens. The warden observes Joseph. He watches how Joseph carries himself, how he speaks to the other prisoners, how he organizes, how he manages, and the warden does what Potiphar did before him. He places everything into Joseph's hands. All the prisoners, all the daily operations, all the details that a warden would normally oversee. He delegates them entirely. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care. The same sentence, the same trust, the same pattern. In Potiphar's house, Potiphar did not concern himself with anything except his own food. In the prison, the warden does not concern himself with anything under Joseph's care. This is not coincidence. This is character. Joseph's gift, his ability to manage, to organize, to bring order out of chaos, this gift does not depend on where he stands. It does not require a fine house or a noble title. It functions in a prison cell the same way it functioned in a wealthy man's estate. Because the gift comes from the same source as the presence. It comes from the Lord, and the Lord is with Joseph whether Joseph is wearing linen or chains. So Joseph serves. He serves in the dark. He serves among men who have lost everything. He serves without recognition, without reward, without any promise that this service will lead anywhere. He simply does what he has always done. He is faithful. He is competent. He is present. And the Lord gives him success in whatever he does, even here, even now, even in the place where the king's prisoners are confined. Let that settle over you, the quiet truth of it. That faithfulness does not require freedom, that the presence of God does not require comfort, that a man can be forgotten by every human being who ever knew his name and still not be forgotten by the one who made him. Joseph is in prison. And he waits. Genesis chapter 40. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do your faces look so sad today? Why do your faces look so sad today?" A small question, a human question, the kind of question that costs nothing to ask, and yet so few people ask it. Joseph notices. He pays attention. He is a prisoner himself, falsely accused, abandoned, forgotten, and yet he looks at the faces of the men around him and he sees their distress. He does not withdraw into his own suffering. He does not harden. He asks. "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. Do not interpretations belong to God?" Joseph does not claim the gift for himself. He does not say, "I can do this." He says, "God can do this." And then he listens. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. 3 days, 3 branches, 3 days, and then restoration. The cupbearer will stand before Pharaoh again. He will place the cup in the king's hand as he once did. His disgrace will end. His waiting will be over. In 3 days. But Joseph has been waiting far longer than 3 days, and so he speaks. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. Remember me. Show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh. This is not a demand, it is a plea, quiet and dignified but unmistakable. Joseph is asking for help. He is asking a man who is about to be restored to power to remember a prisoner who has no power at all. He tells the truth plainly. I was carried off. I have done nothing wrong. I do not belong here. Get me out. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favourable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. The same number, 3, the same time frame, 3 days, but a different end entirely. The cupbearer will have his head lifted up, restored. The baker will have his head lifted off, executed. The same phrase turned inside out. One man walks back into the light. The other does not walk out at all. Joseph delivers both interpretations. He does not soften the second. He does not withhold it. He speaks what God has shown him, whether the news is welcome or terrible, because interpretations belong to God, and God does not lie. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had interpreted to them, exactly as Joseph said, to the day, to the detail. The cupbearer returns to his place beside the king. The baker is executed. Everything unfolds precisely as the dreams foretold and precisely as Joseph interpreted. God's word through Joseph is proven true. And now surely the cupbearer will remember. He will speak Joseph's name before Pharaoh. He will say, there is a man in your prison, a Hebrew. He interpreted my dream and he was right. He asked me to mention him to you. Surely now. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. He forgot him. The cupbearer walked out of that prison restored and free. He took Pharaoh's cup in his hand again. He resumed his duties. He returned to the rhythms of court life. And Joseph, the man who told him the truth, the man who asked only to be remembered, Joseph faded from his mind entirely. Not mentioned, not thought of, forgotten. And the forgetting lasts. It does not last a week. It does not last a month. It lasts 2 full years. 2 years, 700 days and more. Joseph remains in prison, day after day, season after season, managing the prisoners, faithful in his duties, unseen, unremembered, unknown. The dreams he interpreted came true. His own dreams have not. The sheaves still do not bow. The stars still do not bend. And no one, not one person in all of Egypt, speaks his name in any place where it might help him. 2 years is a long time, long enough to wonder if God has forgotten too, long enough to feel the weight of silence pressed down like stone, long enough for hope to become a thing you carry carefully, afraid to hold it too tightly, afraid to set it down entirely. Joseph waits, and the silence holds. Rest in this pause, let your breathing slow. 2 years of waiting, 2 years of faithfulness without answer, 2 years of darkness, and yet the Lord was with Joseph, even in the silence, even in the forgetting, even now. Genesis chapter 41. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the river bank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. 2 dreams, 1 night. The same message delivered twice in different images. 7 and 7. Fat and thin. Full and empty. Abundance swallowed by scarcity. Pharaoh feels it. He wakes disturbed. The dreams do not dissolve the way ordinary dreams dissolve in daylight. They stay with him. They press against his chest. They demand understanding. In the morning his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. All the magicians of Egypt, all the wise men, the learned scribes. The interpreters of signs, the men trained to read omens and decipher the language of the gods. They hear Pharaoh's dreams, and they cannot explain them, not one. The king of Egypt stands before the most educated men in his realm, and they have nothing for him. No answer, no clarity, no peace. And in that silence, in that gap where human wisdom fails, a memory stirs. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream, and things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled. Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. The Hebrew word carries weight. It is not merely, I forgot something. It is closer to, I am reminded of my guilt. I am reminded of my offence. The cupbearer knows he failed. He knows he made a promise to a man in prison and broke it. He knows he walked free and left Joseph behind without a word. 2 years of silence, 2 years of guilt he may not have even felt until this very moment. But now that Pharaoh needs something the cupbearer cannot provide. Now the memory surfaces. Now he speaks, not out of compassion for Joseph, not out of a sudden awakening of conscience, but because the king is troubled and the cupbearer has information that might be useful. The machinery of providence turns on imperfect parts, a forgotten promise, a guilty conscience, a sleepless king. A man still in prison who once said, "Do not interpretations belong to God?" All of it converges now. All of it has been converging for 2 years without anyone knowing. The cupbearer forgot, but God did not forget. The wise men of Egypt failed, but the God of Joseph does not fail. And now, after years in a pit, years in a house, years in a prison, now the door is about to open. Not because Joseph earned it, not because the cupbearer kept his word, not because any human plan succeeded, but because a king could not sleep, because dreams came in the night that no one could explain, because the one who gives dreams to kings is the same one who gave dreams to a 17-year-old boy in Canaan, and he has not forgotten that boy. He has not abandoned the promise. He has been working, silently, invisibly, through betrayal and slavery and false accusation and imprisonment and forgetting, working all of it toward a moment that no one but he could see coming. The cupbearer speaks Joseph's name before Pharaoh, and everything changes, but not yet, not in this breath. For now, let the weight of those 2 years settle. Let yourself feel how long they were, how silent, how dark. Joseph did not know this moment was coming. He did not know that Pharaoh would dream tonight. He did not know that the cupbearer would remember tomorrow. He only knew that the Lord was with him. He only knew that interpretations belonged to God. He only knew how to be faithful in the place where he stood, and that was enough. It was enough for 2 years in prison. It was enough for every day he could not see the road ahead. It was enough for the silence when no voice came from heaven. The Lord was with Joseph, in the pit, in the house, in the prison, in the forgetting, in the 2 years of nothing. The presence held, the promise held, the dreams, still unfulfilled, still seemingly impossible, the dreams held. And now the story turns. Now, in the silence after Pharaoh's troubled morning, in the pause after the cupbearer's confession, in the space between a king's need and a prisoner's gift, now the arc bends towards something Joseph has not seen since he was 17 years old. Light. But that turning, That moment when the prison door opens and Joseph is brought before the most powerful man in the known world, that moment waits. It waits for you on the other side of the rest. Sleep now. Let your body be still. Let the silence hold you the way it held Joseph. Not empty silence, not abandoned silence, but the silence of a story that is still being written, the silence of a God who is still at work, the silence before the dawn. The Lord was with Joseph. He is with you now, in the quiet, in the dark, in the waiting. Rest. The story holds, and now the story turns. Pharaoh sends for Joseph. The message reaches the prison, and what happens next happens fast. Genesis chapter 41. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Notice the speed of it. One moment he is in darkness, in the place where prisoners are kept, where the air is close and the days run together. The next moment, messengers, the word of the king, and Joseph is pulled out of that place the way a man is pulled from deep water. Quickly, the text says, quickly brought from the dungeon. There is no transition, no gradual warming, no slow climb from obscurity. One day he is a prisoner. The same day he stands before Pharaoh. But first, a detail that tells you everything about where he is going. He shaves, he changes his clothes. This is Egyptian custom. No one appears before Pharaoh unshaven. No one stands in the royal court in the garments of a prison. And so Joseph, the man who lost his robe to his brothers, who lost his cloak to Potiphar's wife, is given new clothes again, clean linen. A razor against his skin, the dust and grime of years washed away. He does not know yet what this day will bring. He only knows that the king has called for him, and he makes himself ready. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream you can interpret it. And here, listen to what Joseph says. Listen to the first words out of his mouth in the throne room of the most powerful man in the known world. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. I cannot do it. Not, I am gifted. Not, I have interpreted dreams before. Not, let me show you what I can do. I cannot do it. But God will. 13 years since his brothers threw him in a pit. 13 years of slavery and false accusation and prison. And the first thing Joseph says when his moment finally comes is, it is not about me. It belongs to God. Then Pharaoh speaks. He tells Joseph the dreams, the 7 cows, fat and sleek, grazing along the Nile, and the 7 other cows, gaunt and ugly and thin, that came up after them, and the thin, ugly cows ate the 7 fat cows. But even after they had eaten them, no one could tell they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. And then the second dream. 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk, and after them 7 other heads sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind, and the thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. Pharaoh tells Joseph what he has already told his magicians, what he has already told the wise men of Egypt, what no one could explain. And Joseph answers. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. 2 dreams, one meaning 7 years of abundance, 7 years of famine, and the doubling, the repetition, means it is certain, it is decided, it will come soon. This is what the magicians could not see. This is what the wise men of Egypt could not read, not because they lacked intelligence, but because this revelation belongs to God, and God gave it to a Hebrew prisoner standing barefoot in a palace. But Joseph does not stop with the interpretation. He does something remarkable, something no one asked him to do. He proposes a solution. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man, and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming, and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country, to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. A prisoner, summoned to interpret a dream, and he walks into the throne room and delivers not only the meaning of the dream, but a comprehensive administrative plan for national survival. A fifth of the harvest, collected and stored, commissioners appointed, cities designated for storage, a strategy to outlast 7 years of devastation. No one asked Joseph for this. Pharaoh asked for an interpretation. Joseph gave him that, and then gave him the path forward. As if he had been preparing for this his entire life. As if every year of managing Potiphar's household, every year of administering the royal prison, had been training for this single moment. The plan was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? Can we find anyone like this man?" The answer is already in the room. Everyone knows it. The man who can see what no one else can see. The man who not only reads the future but knows what to do about it. The man in whom the Spirit of God dwells. He is standing right there. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. Only with respect to the throne. Let those words settle. Yesterday, a prisoner. Today, second in command over all Egypt. There is no one so discerning and wise as you." Pharaoh does not hesitate. He does not convene a council. He does not take days to deliberate. He sees what is before him, and he acts. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way!" Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt, the signet ring, the symbol of royal authority, the seal that signs decrees into law. Pharaoh takes it from his own hand and places it on the hand of a man who that very morning wore the garments of a prisoner. Robes of fine linen, a gold chain, a chariot, and the people shouting before him, "Make way! Make way for the man who was forgotten. Make way for the man who was sold. Make way for the man who was thrown into a pit and into a prison and into silence. Make way." Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. 30 years old. He was 17 when his brothers sold him. 13 years. 13 years between the pit and the palace. 13 years of faithfulness that no one saw. 13 years of presence that never left. And now, at 30, the arc turns. The dreams are not yet fulfilled. The brothers have not yet bowed. The father does not yet know his son lives. But the road that will bring all of it to pass, that road opens now. Pharaoh gives Joseph an Egyptian name, Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gives him a wife, Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph is woven into Egypt now. He has an Egyptian name, an Egyptian wife, Egyptian authority. He is no longer the Hebrew slave. He is no longer the prisoner. He is the governor of the land. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and travelled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Like the sand of the sea, beyond measure. So much grain that the numbers ceased to matter. Joseph moves through the land, city by city, field by field. 1/5 of every harvest gathered and stored. The abundance is staggering. The Nile floods perfectly year after year. The fields yield more than anyone has seen, and Joseph, the man who learned administration in a house and in a prison, now administers a nation. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, "It is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household." The second son he named Ephraim and said, "It is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." Manasseh: "God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household." Listen to what that name carries. The trouble, the pit, the slavery, the false accusation, the prison, the forgetting, and my father's household, the brothers who hated him, the father who could not protect him, the home he was torn from at 17. Joseph names his son after the mercy of forgetting, after the grace of being released from the weight of what was done to him. And Ephraim: "God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." Not, "God took me out of the land of suffering." Not, "God brought me somewhere better." God made me fruitful here, in this place, in the land where I was a slave, in the land where I was a prisoner, in this land, fruitfulness. These names are monuments. They tell you what Joseph has lived through, and they tell you what God has done in the middle of it. Not removal from suffering, fruitfulness within it. The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food, just as Joseph had said. The dreams were true, the interpretation was true, the plan was true, and now the famine comes, not only to Egypt, but to all the surrounding lands, to every nation within reach, to Canaan. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." Go to Joseph. The whole nation turns to one man, the man who was forgotten, the man who was in a dungeon 2 years ago. Go to Joseph. When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe everywhere. All the world came to Egypt. All the world came to Joseph. And among them, though he does not know it yet, his brothers will come. The dream is about to fulfill itself. The sheaves are about to bow. Genesis chapter 42. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at each other?" He continued, "I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die." The famine has reached Canaan. The fields are empty, the flocks are thin, and Jacob, old now, still grieving, still carrying the weight of a son he believes is dead, Jacob hears that Egypt has food. "Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die." Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him. 10 brothers, not 12, not 11, 10. Benjamin stays behind, the youngest, the other son of Rachel, the one Jacob cannot bear to risk. Because he has already lost one son of Rachel, he will not lose another. So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for there was famine in the land of Canaan also. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. They bowed down to him. With their faces to the ground, the dream, the sheaves, the 11 sheaves bowing to one. It is happening now, in a grain hall in Egypt, 20 years after a 17-year-old boy told his brothers what he had seen in the night. They bowed, and they did not know who they were bowing to. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. They did not recognize him. 20 years have passed. He was 17 when they last saw him. He is now near 40. He is shaved in the Egyptian manner. He wears the robes of a governor. He speaks through an interpreter. He is Zaphanath-Paneah to them, a foreign official, a powerful stranger. They do not see their brother, but he sees them. He sees every face. He remembers every voice. He remembers the pit. He remembers their hands pulling his robe from his body. He remembers the sound of their voices deciding his fate. And now they are bowing before him, and they do not know. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected." He remembered his dreams. The text says it plainly. In the moment they bow, Joseph remembers what God showed him as a boy, and he speaks harshly. "You are spies. This is not cruelty for its own sake. This is something else, something more complex. Joseph is testing. Joseph is watching. Joseph needs to know. Have they changed? Are they the same men who threw their brother into a pit and sat down to eat? Or has something shifted in 20 years? "No, my lord," they answered. "Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies." "No," he said to them, "you have come to see where our land is unprotected." But they replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more." One is no more. They are talking about Joseph, to Joseph, and they do not know it. One is no more. That is what they believe. Or perhaps that is what they have told themselves for 20 years. He is no more, gone, as if he simply vanished, as if they had nothing to do with it. Joseph said to them, "It is just as I told you. You are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison, so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If you are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." And he put them all in custody for 3 days. 3 days in a prison. The brothers who put Joseph in a pit now sit in confinement themselves. The brothers who sold him into slavery now wait in the dark, not knowing what will happen to them. 3 days of uncertainty, 3 days of fear. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified, and that you may not die." This they proceeded to do. He softens the demand. Not all imprisoned while one goes, one imprisoned while the rest go. He gives them food for their families. He gives them a path forward, but the condition remains. "Bring Benjamin. Prove your words." They said to one another, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us. Surely we're being punished because of our brother. 20 years, and the guilt has never left. It has been there all along, silent, buried, but alive. And now, in this moment of fear and helplessness, it rises to the surface. We saw how distressed he was. He pleaded with us. We would not listen. This is the first time the text reveals that Joseph begged them, that he pleaded, that his brothers watched his distress and chose to ignore it. 20 years they have carried this. Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood." Reuben, the one who tried to save him, the one who planned to return to the cistern and pull him out. Now he speaks, "Didn't I tell you? Now we must give an accounting." They do not know that Joseph understands every word. They do not know he is listening. They are speaking in their own tongue, assuming the Egyptian governor cannot understand. But he understands. He understands everything. He turned away from them and began to weep. He turned away and wept. The governor of Egypt, the man with the signet ring and the gold chain and the power of life and death over everyone in that room. He turns his face so they will not see, and he weeps for what they did, for what they have carried, for the brother they thought was dead who is standing before them, alive, for the 20 years between that pit and this moment. He weeps. Then he turned back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes. Simeon, taken, bound. The brothers watch one of their own led away, and they cannot stop it. They are helpless before this foreign power, just as Joseph was helpless before them at Dothan. The pattern echoes. The mirror holds. Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to put each man's silver back in his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. After this was done for them, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left. He fills their bags. He returns their money. He gives them food for the road. Even now, even in the middle of this strange, painful testing, Joseph provides. He cannot help it. They are his brothers. They are his father's sons. And the famine is real, and their households are starving, and whatever reckoning must come, he will not let them go hungry. The silver in the sacks will terrify them when they find it. They will think it is a trap. They will think the Egyptian governor is setting them up. But it is not a trap. It is grace they cannot yet understand. It is provision wrapped in mystery. It is a brother's love hidden behind a governor's mask. And Simeon sits in an Egyptian prison, and the brothers ride north toward Canaan. And Jacob waits, not knowing that his son Joseph is alive, not knowing that his son Simeon is now held in the very land where Joseph disappeared 20 years ago. The story tightens. The threads draw closer. The dreams are fulfilling themselves in ways no one in the story can see, not the brothers, not Jacob, not even Joseph entirely. Only the one who gave the dreams sees the full shape. Only the one who's been present in every pit, every house, every prison, every throne room. Only he sees where all of this is going. And it is going somewhere. It is going toward a moment none of them can imagine yet. But that moment is not tonight. Tonight, the brothers ride north with full sacks and troubled hearts. Tonight, Simeon waits in the dark. Tonight, Joseph is alone with what he has seen, and what he has heard, and what he cannot yet say. Let the silence hold. Let the night carry you. The story continues, and it will be there when you wake. Rest now. The presence that held Joseph holds you, in the quiet, in the waiting, in the space between what has happened and what is still to come. Sleep. The famine does not relent. In Canaan the grain runs low. The sacks the brothers brought back from Egypt, those heavy precious sacks, they empty slowly, carefully, handful by handful. But they empty, and the land remains parched. The sky remains dry. The fields remain barren. And Jacob's household begins to feel the weight of hunger pressing in again. Simeon is still in Egypt. The brothers know this. Jacob knows this. But Jacob will not speak of sending them back. He will not speak of Benjamin. The old man has already lost one son of Rachel. He watched the bloodied robe. He tore his garments. He mourned for 20 years. And now this Egyptian governor demands the youngest, the only son of Rachel left to him? No. Jacob will not send Benjamin. He cannot. The grief is too deep, the fear is too sharp, and so the days pass, and the grain diminishes, and Simeon waits in an Egyptian prison, and the famine deepens. Genesis chapter 43. When the grain they had brought from Egypt was gone, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little more food." A little more food. The words are simple, the request is ordinary. But Judah knows what it will cost. But Judah said to him, "The man warned us solemnly, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother along with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, because the man said to us, "You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you."' The terms are clear. The governor was explicit. No Benjamin, no audience. No audience, no grain. No grain, and the household starves. Israel asked, "Why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man you had another brother?" Jacob's voice carries the weight of a father who has lost too much. "Why did you tell him? Why did you give him this weapon to use against us?" they replied. "The man questioned us closely about ourselves and our family. 'Is your father still living?' he asked us. 'Do you have another brother?' We simply answered his questions. How were we to know he would say, 'Bring your brother down here'?" They did not know. They could not have known. The question seemed routine, the curiosity of a foreign official, nothing more. But every answer they gave drew the net tighter. Every truth they spoke brought them closer to this impossible choice. Then Judah said to Israel his father, "Send the boy along with me, and we will go at once, so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life." Judah, the one who proposed the sale, the one who said, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood?" The one who suggested selling Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Now he steps forward. Now he offers himself. "I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible. I will bear the blame all my life. The brother who traded one son of Rachel for silver now pledges his own life for the other son of Rachel. Something has shifted. Something is moving in the hearts of these men. The guilt they carry, the guilt they confess to one another in Egypt, not knowing Joseph could hear, that guilt is doing its work. It is breaking something open. It is making room for something new. As it is, if we had not delayed, we could have gone and returned twice. Judah speaks practically now. The famine will not wait for their fear to subside. The children are hungry. The households are failing. The time for hesitation has passed. Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them down to the man as a gift. A little balm and a little honey, some spices and myrrh, some pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put back into the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. A little balm, a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds. These are the treasures of a famine-struck land. These are the best products Jacob can gather, for not gold, not jewels, but the small precious things that still grow in Canaan's soil. He sends them as a gift to appease the powerful Egyptian. He sends double silver to cover whatever debt they might owe. He does everything he can to protect his sons, and then he releases the one he cannot bear to lose. Take your brother also and go back to the man at once, and may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man so that he will let your other brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved." The words carry the weight of surrender. Jacob has done all he can. He has sent gifts. He has sent silver. He has sent prayers. Now he releases his son into the hands of God and the mercy of a foreign governor. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved. The old man who wrestled with God at Peniel, the old man who received the name Israel, he who strives with God, now he lets go. Now he trusts. Now he waits. So the men took the gifts and doubled the amount of silver, and Benjamin also. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. The journey south, the long road through the Negev, the descent into Egypt. Benjamin walks among his brothers for the first time, the youngest, the protected one. The son Jacob kept close for 20 years. Now he travels toward the land that swallowed his brother Joseph. He does not know what waits for him there. None of them do. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take these men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare a meal. They are to eat with me at noon." Joseph sees Benjamin, his brother, his mother's other son, the last face he would have seen before he left his father's tents. A child then, a boy now grown into a young man. Joseph sees him, and he invites them all to his house. The man did as Joseph told him, and took the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were frightened when they were taken to his house. They thought, "We were brought here because of the silver that was put back into our sacks the first time. He wants to attack us and overpower us, and seize us as slaves and take our donkeys." Fear grips them. They do not understand grace. They do not recognize provision. They see only threat. The silver in their sacks, the silver Joseph returned to them. They interpret it as a trap. They assume the worst. They expect punishment. This is what guilt does. It distorts vision. It makes every kindness look like accusation. It makes every gift look like a snare. So they went up to Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the entrance to the house. "We beg your pardon, our lord," they said. "We came down here the first time to buy food, but at the place where we stopped for the night we opened our sacks and each of us found his silver, the exact weight, in the mouth of his sack, so we have brought it back with us. We have also brought additional silver with us to buy food. We don't know who put our silver in our sacks. They confess, they explain, they return the silver, they do everything they can to prove their innocence." "It's all right," he said. "Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your silver." Then he brought Simeon out to them. "Don't be afraid. Your God has given you treasure." The steward speaks words he may not fully understand, but the words are true. The God of their father has been at work in ways they cannot see. The silver was not a trap. It was a gift. And Simeon who has waited in that prison, who has sat in the dark wondering if his brothers would ever return. Simeon comes out to them. The family is together again, not complete, not yet, but closer. The steward took the men into Joseph's house. gave them water to wash their feet, and provided fodder for their donkeys. They prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon, because they had heard that they were to eat there. When Joseph came home, they presented to him the gifts they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. They bowed down before him. Again, the dreams continue to fulfill themselves. The sheaves bow, the brothers bow, and Joseph stands before them, their brother, their ruler, the one they sold, the one who saves. He asked them how they were, and then he said, "How is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living?" Joseph asks about Jacob. Is he still living? The question he has carried for 20 years. The father he left behind, the father who wept. Is he still alive? They replied. Your servant, our father, is still living and well. And they bowed down, prostrating themselves before him. Still living, still well. Jacob breathes. Jacob waits. Jacob mourns. A son he does not know is standing before his other sons at this very moment. As he looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, "Is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son. God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph speaks blessing over Benjamin, his mother's son, the brother he never had the chance to know, the child who was perhaps still nursing when Joseph was sold. Now a young man, now standing before him, now receiving a blessing from a brother he does not recognize. Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. Again, Joseph weeps. Again, he must hide his tears. The emotion is too much. The sight of Benjamin, Rachel's other son, the brother who shares his blood more closely than any of the others, it breaks something open in him. He hurries away. He finds a private room, and he weeps. The governor of Egypt, the man with the signet ring, the man who controls the grain of the world. He weeps like a child who has found something he thought was lost forever. After he had washed his face, he came out and, controlling himself, said, "Serve the food." He composes himself. He washes his face. He returns to his role. The mask goes back on. The test is not finished. They served him by himself, the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews, for that is detestable to Egyptians. The men had been seated before him in the order of their ages, from the firstborn to the youngest, and they looked at each other in astonishment. In the order of their ages, from the firstborn to the youngest, Reuben first, then Simeon, then Levi, down the line, ending with Benjamin. Perfect order. Impossible order. How could this Egyptian know? How could he possibly know their birth sequence? They looked at each other in astonishment. They looked at each other bewildered. Something is happening that they cannot explain. Something is at work that they cannot understand. The governor knows too much. The coincidences are too precise. But they cannot see the truth, not yet. When portions were served to them from Joseph's table, Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as anyone else's. So they feasted and drank freely with him. Benjamin receives 5 times as much, the favourite, the youngest, the son of Rachel. Joseph cannot help himself. He lavishes abundance on his brother. He gives and gives and gives, and the brothers feast, and they drink. And for a moment, the fear subsides. For a moment, there is laughter and food and wine. For a moment, it almost feels like family. But the test is not finished. Genesis chapter 44. Now Joseph gave these instructions to the steward of his house. Fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. Then put my cup, the silver one, in the mouth of the youngest one's sack, along with the silver for his grain. And he did as Joseph said. The silver cup, Joseph's own cup, the cup used for divination, a precious object, an object that could not be mistaken for anything other than theft if found in the wrong hands. Joseph plants it in Benjamin's sack. He sets the final trap. He creates the conditions for the ultimate test. As morning dawned, the men were sent on their way with their donkeys. They had not gone far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, "Go after those men at once, and when you catch up with them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? This is a wicked thing you have done. The brothers ride north. Their sacks are full, their hearts are light. Simeon is with them, Benjamin is safe. The nightmare seems to be ending, and then the steward overtakes them. When he caught up with them, he repeated these words to them. But they said to him, "Why does my lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything like that. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouths of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become my lord's slaves." They are confident. They are innocent, or so they believe. They even invoke death upon the guilty party. They do not know what waits in Benjamin's sack. "Very well then," he said, "let it be as you say. Whoever is found to have it will become my slave. The rest of you will be free from blame." The steward softens the terms, not death, slavery, only for the guilty one. The rest go free. Each of them quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. Then the steward proceeded to search, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack, beginning with the oldest, ending with the youngest. The same order as the seating at dinner. The search moves through each brother. Reuben, nothing. Simeon, nothing. Levi, nothing. On down the line. Hope builds with each empty sack, and then Benjamin, the cup, the silver cup, there in the grain, there in the sack of the youngest, there in the possession of Rachel's son. At this they tore their clothes. They tore their clothes. All of them. Not just Benjamin, all of them. The same gesture Jacob made when he saw the bloodied robe, the same gesture of grief and horror and despair. They do not abandon Benjamin. They do not say, "This is his problem, not ours." They do not ride on toward Canaan and leave him to his fate. They tear their clothes. Then they all loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. They all returned, every one of them. They could have escaped. The steward said the rest would be free from blame. They could have ridden north to their father with the grain and their freedom. But they did not. They turned around. They went back. They refused to abandon their brother. Something has changed in these men. Something has shifted in 20 years. The brothers who threw Joseph into a pit and sat down to eat their meal, those brothers would have left Benjamin behind. But these brothers return. These brothers stay together. These brothers will not let another son of Rachel be lost to Egypt. Joseph was still in the house when Judah and his brothers came in, and they threw themselves to the ground before him. They throw themselves down. Again, the bowing. Again, the fulfillment of dreams. But now the bowing carries a different weight. Now it is not commerce. Now it is desperation. Now it is pleading. Joseph said to them, "What is this you have done? Don't you know that a man like me can find things out by divination? What have you done?" The question hangs in the air. The accusation presses down. "What can we say to my lord?" Judah replied. "What can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. We are now my lord's slaves, we ourselves, and the one who was found to have the cup." Judah does not argue. He does not protest Benjamin's innocence. He speaks of guilt, but not the guilt of the cup. God has uncovered your servant's guilt. He is thinking of another crime, another brother, another pit, another sale. The guilt they have carried for 20 years. Judah feels it pressing up through this moment. The past and present are colliding. But Joseph said, "Far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who was found to have the cup will become my slave. The rest of you, go back to your father in peace. Go back to your father in peace. The words are a release. The brothers are free. They can leave. They can return to Jacob. They can save themselves. Only Benjamin stays. Only Benjamin becomes a slave. This is the test. This is the moment Joseph has been building toward. What will they do? Will they take the escape? Will they abandon Benjamin as they abandoned Joseph? Will they return to their father with another lie, another loss, another son swallowed by Egypt? Then Judah went up to him and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord. Let me speak a word to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, though you are equal to Pharaoh himself." Judah steps forward. Judah speaks. The brother who proposed the sale now stands before the brother he sold and delivers a speech that will change everything. "My lord asked his servants, 'Do you have a father or a brother?' And we answered, 'We have an aged father, and there is a young son born to him in his old age. His brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him. His brother is dead." Judah says the words. He believes them. He has believed them for 20 years. He does not know that the dead brother stands before him, listening to every word. "Then you said to your servants, 'Bring him down to me so I can see him for myself.' And we said to my lord, 'The boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves him, his father will die.' But you told your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again.' When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him what my lord had said. Then our father said, 'Go back and buy a little more food.' But we said, 'We cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us will we go. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us.'" Judah recounts the whole story. He holds nothing back. He speaks of Jacob's love. He speaks of Jacob's fear. He speaks of the impossible choice the famine forced upon them. "Your servant my father said to us, 'You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, He has surely been torn to pieces. And I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too and harm comes to him, you will bring my grey head down to the grave in misery. My wife bore me 2 sons, Rachel, the beloved wife, the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. Jacob's grief is laid bare in Judah's words. He has surely been torn to pieces, the lie the brothers told, the lie Jacob believed, the lie that has shaped 20 years of mourning. And now Judah repeats it, not knowing that the truth stands before him with tears rising in his eyes. So now, if the boy is not with us when I go back to your servant my father, and if my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants will bring the grey head of our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I said, if I do not bring him back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. Let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy. Judah offers himself. The man who sold his brother for 20 pieces of silver now offers his own freedom, his own life, for another brother. Let me stay. Let me be the slave. Let the boy go home. Do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. This is the test, and Judah passes it. The transformation is complete. The brother who betrayed has become the brother who protects. The man who proposed the sale now proposes the sacrifice. The one who broke his father's heart now cannot bear to break it again. Genesis chapter 45. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence!" So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. Have everyone leave, the Egyptians go, the interpreters go, the servants go. Only the brothers remain, only the sons of Jacob, only the family. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph weeps, not quietly, not privately. He weeps so loudly that the sound carries through the walls, the sound of 20 years breaking open, the sound of grief and joy and relief and love all pouring out at once. Pharaoh's household hears it, Egypt hears it, the governor is weeping. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph, I am Joseph." 3 words. 3 words that collapse 2 decades. 3 words that rewrite everything the brothers thought they knew. The Egyptian governor, the man with the signet ring, the man who accused them of spying, the man who imprisoned Simeon, the man who demanded Benjamin. I am Joseph. Is my father still living? The first question. The only question that matters. Is my father still living? Is Jacob still alive? Does he still breathe? Does he still wait? Does he still mourn? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. They cannot speak. Terror grips them. The brother they sold, the brother they left for dead, the brother they have lied about for 20 years. He stands before them. He has the power of life and death over them. He has every reason to destroy them. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. Come close. Come near. Do not stand at a distance. Do not cower in fear. Come close to me. I am your brother. And now, Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Do not be distressed. Do not be angry with yourselves. Joseph speaks forgiveness before they can ask for it. He speaks absolution before they can confess. He reframes the entire story. God sent me, not you, God. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no ploughing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. To preserve a remnant, to save lives, to accomplish a great deliverance. The pit was not the end. The slavery was not the end. The prison was not the end. Every suffering was a step toward this moment. Every darkness was a passage toward this light. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all Egypt. It was not you, it was God. Joseph says it twice. He wants them to hear it. He wants them to believe it. The guilt they have carried, the guilt that has shaped their lives for 20 years, he is lifting it from their shoulders. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, "This is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay. You shall live in the region of Goshen and be near me. You, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all you have. I will provide for you there, because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise you and your household and all who belong to you will become destitute. Come down, don't delay, I will provide." The brother who was sold now becomes the provider. The slave becomes the saviour. The rejected one becomes the sustainer of the family. Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin embraced him, weeping, and he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward his brothers talked with him. He embraces Benjamin, Rachel's sons, together at last. He kisses all his brothers, every one of them, even the ones who threw him in the pit, even the ones who sat down to eat while he cried out, even Judah who proposed the sale. He kisses them all, he weeps over them all. And then, finally, they talk. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your families back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land." Pharaoh himself welcomes them. Pharaoh himself invites Jacob. The best of the land. The fat of the land. Goshen, a fertile region in the Nile Delta, a place to settle, a place to grow, a place to become a nation. So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They told him Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is ruler of all Egypt. Jacob was stunned. He did not believe them. Joseph is still alive. The words that should have brought joy. The words that should have healed 20 years of grief. But Jacob cannot believe them. He is stunned. He is overwhelmed. It is too much, too impossible, too good to be true. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. The carts, the wagons Joseph sent, physical proof, tangible evidence, and Jacob's spirit revives. The man who said, "I will go down to the grave mourning for my son," his spirit revives. The man who refused to be comforted, he is comforted at last. And Israel said, "I'm convinced. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. I will go and see him before I die. The last journey, the final descent. Jacob will go down to Egypt. He will see the face of his son. He will hold the boy he thought was dead, and then he can die in peace." The family moves south, 70 souls, Jacob and his sons, their wives and children. Their flocks and herds, everything they have, they leave Canaan. They descend into Egypt. They settle in Goshen. And what began as betrayal becomes blessing. What began as a pit becomes a palace. What began as 20 pieces of silver becomes the salvation of a nation. The dreams have fulfilled themselves. The sheaves have bowed. The stars have bowed. And the dreamer stands at the center, not to rule over his brothers in pride, but to save them in love. This is the story of Joseph. This is the arc from betrayal to forgiveness. This is the long road from the cistern at Dothan to the embrace in Egypt. And the God who gave the dreams, the God who was present in every pit, every house, every prison, every throne room, that God has been working all along, working in the darkness, working in the silence, working in the waiting, working toward this moment of reunion, this moment of healing, this moment of grace. The story does not end here. The family will grow, the nation will form. Centuries will pass, bondage will come, deliverance will follow. But tonight, in this moment, there is only this: a father holding his son, a family made whole, a promise kept, and the presence of God, the same presence that held Joseph in the pit, in Potiphar's house, in the prison, in the palace. That presence holds you now, in the quiet, in the dark, in the space between waking and sleeping. You are held, you are kept, you are not forgotten. Rest now. Let the story settle into your heart. Let the long arc of grace carry you into sleep. The one who watched over Joseph watches over you. The one who turned betrayal into blessing is at work in your story too. You may not see it yet. You may not understand it yet. But the God who sent Joseph ahead is the God who goes before you, and he is faithful. Sleep now. Sleep in peace. The story is complete, and you are loved.